Hello everyone, my name is Kevin, I'm co-founder and CEO at Passbolt. It's truly an honor to be here. And before I start, I would like to thank the LibreOffice organization for organizing this event and for giving us the opportunity to be here, the volunteers of the organization for their work, and as well as Paolo Becci, who also did a fantastic job in organizing this. And I think we've been in touch for quite a while talking about this event, so it's really a pleasure to see it happening in practice. And finally, a big thank you to the Luxembourg government for fostering such a good environment for open source projects and companies like us. So how does this work? Okay. So as I said, my name is Kevin, I'm co-founder and CEO at Passbolt. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've always been an entrepreneur since the past 20 years. I started my first company in India at the age of 23. Also big-time open source enthusiast. My first company was already using open source. And aside from my activities as an entrepreneur, I'm also a startup coach and an investor occasionally. As you can see in this photo, well, back then Facebook was not there, so we didn't know that photos like this could resurface. But basically, 20 years ago, we were already at the FOSDEM meeting open source developers and leaders, such as in this photo. Mad Dog was one of the core Linux kernel developers. A few words about Passbolt. What is Passbolt? It's an open source credential management platform. A few words about our metrics, currently adopted by 500,000 daily active users worldwide, which represents 35,000 organizations in 100 countries. We have 30 employees, and we are growing at a pace of 100% since the creation of the company. GitHub stars, of course, you cannot talk about open source without GitHub stars, 4,500 as it is. Of course, this is not a metric that we are monitoring closely, but still it is there. And aside from all this, Passbolt is also an organizer of annual conference for open source founders, which is called the Open Source Founder Summit. And the first edition of the conference was this year and was a success, where 75 founders from all over the world joined us in Paris to talk about commercial open source and the problems that we are facing as founders. And the next edition will be happening next year, so if you're interested, please be in touch. What is the history of the company? It's a company, Passbolt is a company that was born quite a few years ago, in 2012, at least for the ideation. Back then, we were a web agency making websites for customers, and we were struggling with our passwords. One way we tried to fix our password management issues and credential management issues was by using a small tool that most of you are probably knowing, which is called KeePass. And the problem is we were working with KeePass as a team, which means we needed to be collaborative, but KeePass was not collaborative. The Passbolt was actually born in an attempt to make KeePass collaborative by having a web-based interface, a multi-users platform that can handle all types of credentials. When we agreed with Cedric and Rémi, my co-founders, to start working on this project, one thing happened. We thought it would take us 6 months to bring this project to maturity, but in practice it took us 4 years. I think this is something that's happening a lot in startups. We tend to be overly ambitious and do not account for all the complexity that we need in development. But 4 years later, we had the chance to meet people from Lux Innovation and the Luxembourg government, and we basically got accepted in an acceleration program called Fit for Start. Back then, we had nothing. We were not monetizing the project. It was a purely community project. We had our first daily active users, but it was growing fast. And basically, what Fit for Start, the acceleration program, did for us was to help us understand how we could structure a business model around the open source product that we already had. And basically, at the end of the program, soon after, we launched our paid offer, and from there, it really accelerated because we started generating revenue, hiring people, and brought the company to what it is today. Right after Fit for Start, also, we got our first investors, which allowed us to invest in the project, and once again, hiring more people. And now we are in 2024, the company is fully profitable since this year. So this is new for us. We are not fully independent and can grow on our own. What problem are we solving at Passbolt? Well, we all know about password problems. I'm sure it happened to all of you in the audience. One day you were trying to log in a system and you didn't know which password was the right one. So passwords problems are everywhere. At Passbolt, we are focusing mainly on businesses. So in businesses, passwords are everywhere. They are ubiquitous. First thing you do in the morning, you reach your office, you want to log in the systems you're going to use. But we are focusing specifically on the tech teams, because the way we see the organization of passwords in the company, you have people with very less passwords and who are not collaborative. Tech teams are the opposite of that. They are handling a large volume of passwords and they need to collaborate a lot, which means sharing all forms of credentials. And this happens the entire day. So Passbolt is focusing on them and basically trying to fix the problem of software fragmentation, because tech teams, they will manage secrets. For this, they will use technologies like Vault, or they will use very simple passwords, and for this, they will use KeePass, or maybe they will use other type of privileged access management, and for this type of platform, they will use software like Dichotic or CyberArk. Passbolt is an attempt to unify all this in a single application. This is what Passbolt is. You can see the UI, and for those who are already familiar with Passbolt, maybe Passbolt users, if you don't recognize the UI here, don't worry, it's normal. This is the one coming in the next version. As I was mentioning, what Passbolt is doing is unifying all types of credentials in one single application. So you can use it for secrets, you can use it for passwords and TOTPs, you can use it for privileged accesses. You can use it actually for all types of encrypted data or data that are extremely precious secrets to you. All these are articulated with nice workflows and policies on top of it. The way we went to the market at Passbolt is by launching Passbolt CE. What is Passbolt CE? It stands as a community edition. It's a freemium, open source, fully open source under AGPL license that anyone can download on his system. It's Linux native, Kubernetes native, can even be installed in a Raspberry Pi in literally a minute. For those using Debian, it's apt-get install Passbolt, and in 1 minute you get started. So this version of the tool gave us very nice traction, initially hundreds of downloads, then thousands of downloads, and this is where most of our daily active users are actually coming from. So why open source matters for tech teams? We are saying tech teams are target audience at Passbolt. Well, tech teams have a knack for open source, really. And one of the reasons is that open source puts them in control. There is no lock-in effect when you are using an open source software. It also decreases the cost of ownership, at least initially, because in our case at Passbolt, if you're starting with the community edition, which can scale to a large volume of users, by the way, it means you can scale without paying anything. It gives you better interoperability. You can connect it more easily with other platforms of your company internally. And if the connector is not there, you can actually build it yourself, which is the beauty of open source. It also gives you a higher level of transparency because anyone can audit the code. That's probably one of the reasons why some people are saying, so here I'm mentioning the OSS Capital, that open source is eating software faster than software is eating the world. In Europe, we are now observing the first open source unicorns emerging, such as Odoo, which started a few years ago, a very small company, small project trying to fix ERP for small businesses. Now Odoo has a few thousand of employees. And I think this is only the first of many other open source unicorns who are going to emerge out there. So speaking about tech teams, 75% of system admins would always prefer open source when it is available as an alternative. It is not me saying it, it is actually Red Hat. And in our go-to-market at Passbolt, this is exactly how we operate. We usually enter through system administrators, IT managers, or similar profiles. But because our solution is collaborative, very quickly they will onboard other users from their team, and then from one team we'll also reach the other team. And in some cases, we are also being used by the entire organization within a few months or a few years. So it's really the usage that expands the expansion of Passbolt inside an organization. But all this started only with one depeche on the website that most of you are probably knowing, at least the French speakers, Linux FR. I see like someone is in the audience from Linux FR. So first blog article we ever published, and this is the first marketing effort we actually put in the platform, and all the traction we knew after that started from this single depeche. This is the beauty of open source. It generates a lot of word of mouth. When people like a solution, they tend to go out there on blogs, on YouTube, and talk about it. This is an example of the YouTube videos you can find about Passbolt, and this is not us asking these content creators to produce those videos. It's coming organically. What's happening, people are installing Passbolt Community Edition, enjoying it, scaling it, and at some point they realize that, oh, you know, I love this technology so much that I want to talk about it. Then they produce content. What you see on the right is the community adoption that we've known since the launch of the first version. So as you can see, and all this without marketing, by the way. This is purely through word of mouth. So as you can see, it was already doing okay at the beginning, but it's currently accelerating. What about revenue? Community open source is great, but without revenue, you cannot sustain a company. The beauty of open source model when executed right is that the community traction will end up with revenue traction. This is what happened also for us at Passbolt. So from the moment we launched the commercial offer, and without marketing, this is very important because marketing is costly. But in our case, our marketing is done by the community. The community is bringing us the leads that we are later converting into customers. So you can see the growth of revenue is actually following very steadily the growth of the community. As of today, we have 1,600 paying customers in around 100 countries. As I mentioned before, we are growing quite fast at a pace of 100% a year. What's our business model? Fairly simple. We have a free version, the Community Edition, where a lot of features are already available and that you can use with small and medium teams. As your usage of Passbolt will grow, your needs will also grow. And this is where we are selling two versions of Passbolt, Passbolt Pro, which is our paid self-hosted, and Passbolt Cloud, which is for companies who do not want to bother with the hassle of self-hosting. And we have a new product which we launch, I don't want to say soon, but in the future, Passbolt Cloud Freemium, which will be a free tier for people who really want to get started with Passbolt very quickly without self-hosting. Our reach is worldwide, but our key industries are mostly public institutions. And here in Luxembourg, the Luxembourg government and the CTIE is actually using Passbolt and scaling very nicely with it. We are also quite popular with universities, but on top of it, IT companies, health, logistics, defense agencies also. It's really quite horizontal in the market. What is the magic sauce? This is the way we like to represent our business at Passbolt. We call this the dual flywheel of commercial open source. How it works. When we start with the community edition, it gives us more users. The more users we get, the more contributions we will get. And the first form of contribution we get is content. Social media, YouTube videos, and so on. But when users produce content, what does it give us? More users. So that's the first wheel. The second wheel is a form of contributions in open source is technical contributions. So what's happening when people are contributing technically to our products? It gives us more features. So more value created for our users. The more value we create, the more content is produced, and then the more users we get in exchange. That's the community flywheel. How do we generate revenue? When more users are coming to our platform, we know that we will manage to convert a small fraction of them into paid customers, which gives us revenue. But guess what? We are a product company. So what do we do with the revenue we generate? We reinvest it in the product to increase the value creation and the quantity of features, which in turn gives us more users. The loop is looped. We call this the dual flywheel, the community at one side and the revenue at the other side. A few insights from our journey, and then we have to. Okay, what are the pros and cons of running an open source business? The first thing is open source is fairly quite efficient in terms of cash efficiency, go-to-market. And the reason is the community is doing your marketing, which means if you launch a startup in open source, you do not have to spend heavy money in marketing campaigns and trying to find your market fit. The community is giving you this market fit and actually accelerating it. Working with the community also gives you very quick feedback loops, which are extremely important at the initial stage of a company, because you want to make sure that you have a fit with your audience. When you're working with the community, they can be harsh at some point. They will give you very brutal and honest feedback, but this is what allows you nailing your product market fit. And finally, open source commercial companies are quite resilient. As we have seen, we have 1,600 customers. Currently, there is a lot of stickiness. We almost have no churn. People who are using Passbolt, they are very loyal to the solution, which means it is resilient to a lot of things. You see, the business lasts the time. What are the cons? The first con is the complex monetization of open source projects. One of the reasons why the monetization is complex is when you launch an open source project, commercial company, actually you have two projects. The first project is your community edition, and the second project is the paid edition. Normal companies do not have this duality in their business model. So you first need to find your community market fit, and then you need to find your commercial market fit. So you have an additional step in the monetization. The growth can also be a little slower because you first need to grow a community of users, and growing a community of users takes time, at least initially, but as it goes forward, it accelerates. That's the flywheel. But the first steps of it are actually slow. And all this makes it that open source companies are quite often misunderstood by VCs, and we know one thing or two about the fundraising process. This is a bit outside of their map when they are looking at how efficient business is, because open source businesses are actually slower and they are less predictable. Community growth is great, generating revenue based on the community growth is great, but it's not predictable, and this is typically what VCs are looking at. So it doesn't mean it's impossible to raise money for open source projects. We did it, it's just a bit tougher. And this is the end. Thank you so much for your attention. We have a booth outside.